Tensions across the Middle East continue to intensify as the conflict between Iran, Israel, and their allies enters another dangerous phase. In a significant and unexpected development, Iran's president has issued a public apology to neighboring Arab nations after Iranian missiles and drones struck areas across the Gulf region. The message, broadcast on Iranian state television, signals a possible shift in Tehran's approach as the war threatens to draw the entire region into a wider confrontation. The Iranian president said he was apologizing both personally and on behalf of the country to neighboring states that were affected by Iranian strikes. He announced that Iran would halt attacks against Arab neighbors, provided that those countries do not launch attacks against Iran. According to the statement, Iran's Interim Leadership Council has agreed that no further missiles will be fired at regional states unless those countries directly attack Iranian territory. The announcement comes at a time when Israeli airstrikes on Iran have intensified dramatically. New footage emerging from inside Iran shows powerful explosions across western Tehran, where Israeli aircraft reportedly targeted key infrastructure. Among the most significant strikes was an attack on Tehran's Mehrabad airport, one of Iran's busiest airports and a major domestic aviation hub. Witnesses described massive fires and thick columns of smoke rising above the airport complex, with several aircraft reportedly burning on the runway. These latest strikes mark 1 week since the United States and Israel launched a coordinated military assault against Iranian targets. The campaign has included waves of airstrikes aimed at military facilities, missile stockpiles, and strategic infrastructure. According to Iranian officials and humanitarian groups inside the country, the death toll has now surpassed 1,300 people, although the exact number remains difficult to verify amid ongoing bombardments and restricted access to affected areas. While Iran is facing intense pressure at home, it has continued to retaliate across the region. Iranian forces have launched missiles and drones toward multiple locations in the Middle East, including targets in Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates. One of the most alarming incidents occurred near Dubai International Airport, where a drone strike was reported close to the airport perimeter. Verified video footage shows the moment of the attack, raising immediate concerns about the safety of civilian aviation in one of the world's busiest travel hubs. Authorities in the United Arab Emirates say the incoming projectile was intercepted, although debris from the interception reportedly caused a fire on the ground. Officials described the event as a minor incident with no injuries, but the strike triggered widespread confusion about flight operations at Dubai International Airport. For several hours, conflicting announcements created uncertainty for travelers and airlines. Some flights were temporarily suspended while security authorities assessed the situation. Emirates Airlines, one of the UAE's main carriers, announced a temporary halt to certain services before later confirming that operations were gradually resuming. Airport officials now say that flights are returning to service, although schedules remain disrupted and the situation is still being closely monitored. The attack has heightened anxiety among residents and visitors in Dubai. Despite the tension, daily life in the city continues largely as normal. Construction sites remain active, traffic fills the roads, and many businesses are operating as usual. However, there is a noticeable sense of uncertainty among some residents, particularly tourists who unexpectedly found themselves in a region suddenly affected by war. Some travelers have been attempting to leave the country, scrambling to find available flights as airlines adjust their schedules. The broader regional reaction to Iran's apology remains cautious. Gulf governments have been bracing for retaliation ever since the United States and Israel began striking Iranian targets. The presence of American military bases across the Gulf made many states particularly vulnerable to Iranian counterattacks. Tehran had previously warned that it would target any base used to launch attacks against Iran, even if those facilities were located in neighboring countries. In response, Gulf states had insisted they would not allow their territory to be used for offensive operations against Iran. Nevertheless, the conflict has spilled across borders, bringing missile interceptions, air defense alerts, and security threats to several countries in the region. Beyond the immediate military danger, the conflict has also disrupted the region's economic stability. The Gulf's vital oil and gas infrastructure has been placed on high alert amid fears that Iranian forces could target energy facilities. Such attacks could have severe consequences for global energy markets, given the Gulf's central role in supplying oil and natural gas to the world. Regional leaders have warned that the worst-case scenario would involve strikes on major energy installations, shipping routes, or export terminals. So far, those fears have not fully materialized, but the possibility remains a major concern for governments and markets alike. Meanwhile, Iran's leadership is attempting to explain how strikes on neighboring countries occurred in the first place. Iranian officials suggest that certain military units acted independently following the killing of several senior commanders earlier in the conflict. Iran's defense strategy is believed to rely on decentralized command structures, allowing units to act autonomously if central leadership is disrupted. This strategy may have contributed to the attacks that targeted Gulf countries. The Iranian president now says that new orders have been issued to the armed forces, making it clear that strikes on neighboring states must stop unless Iran is directly attacked by them. However, skepticism remains high across the region, particularly after new missile interceptions were reported, even as the apology message was being broadcast. At the same time, Iran has continued its military confrontation with Israel. Overnight, air raid sirens sounded across several Israeli cities, including Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, as incoming ballistic missiles and drones triggered Israel's air defense systems. Most of the projectiles were reportedly intercepted before reaching their targets. Israeli officials say the country's air force carried out large-scale operations against Iran during the same period. According to the Israeli military, approximately 80 fighter jets were deployed in overnight strikes targeting sites across Tehran and central Iran. Israeli authorities claim the attacks focused on missile launch systems, storage facilities, and other infrastructure linked to Iran's military capabilities. Former US President Donald Trump also commented on the conflict, claiming that roughly 60% of Iran's missile launching capacity has already been destroyed during the campaign. Those claims have not been independently verified, but they reflect the scale of the ongoing military operations. The rapidly escalating conflict is raising fears that the Middle East could slide into a much broader war involving multiple countries. Diplomatic efforts had previously attempted to prevent such a scenario. Gulf nations had been actively mediating between Iran and the United States in the months leading up to the conflict, hoping to diffuse tensions and prevent military escalation. Now those same countries find themselves caught in the middle of the crisis. In response to Iranian strikes, several Gulf governments have moved closer together, coordinating defense measures and presenting a united front against further attacks. Iran's call for regional diplomacy may be an attempt to rebuild some of those strained relationships. In his message, the Iranian president emphasized that Middle Eastern countries should resolve their differences through dialogue rather than foreign intervention. He suggested that regional powers should work together to create their own security arrangements and diplomatic solutions. However, the path toward diplomacy remains uncertain. The conflict has already caused significant destruction, casualties, and political divisions across the region. Trust between Iran and its neighbors has been severely damaged, and it may take considerable time before meaningful negotiations can begin. For now, the Middle East remains on edge. Military operations continue, missile defenses remain active, and governments across the region are preparing for further escalation. Whether Iran's apology will lead to a reduction in regional attacks, or whether the conflict will continue to expand, may become clear in the coming hours and days. What is certain is that the stakes are rising rapidly. With multiple countries now affected and global economic interests at risk, the conflict between Iran, Israel, and their allies is no longer a localized confrontation. It has become a crisis with potentially far-reaching consequences for the entire international community.